CCTV's Kristiaan Yo in Ottawa. He joins us on the phone. Kristiaan, what did you take away from that news conference? It seemed authorities very careful about what they say on whether there's more than one suspect or not.
Yes, Artia, very careful wording of that statement, and generally the actions today have been very minimal, shall we say, although the presence that they've had throughout Ottawa is certainly very, very strong. We can't get as close to the parliamentary building as normally we could. We're about 1,000 feet away from it, just outside the Chateau Laurier Hotel, where we're told that the Canadian hockey team, the Maple Leafs, are in lockdown in that hotel, as is most of this city. Classrooms, government buildings, embassies, including the U.S. Embassy, all on lockdown. We've seen snipers on top of the building. Very much an active, ongoing action right now. So it would appear that there is the threat of somebody else on the loose. What we know about that shooting on Parliament Hill is that it occurred at the centre block. That footage that we've seen coming out of the Parliament building, really shocking. The shooter was carrying a rifle or a shotgun, and that shooter, according to witnesses, late 20s, early 30s, with a scarf, possibly with Arabic writings on it. He was shot dead at the scene. Police have confirmed that, and they've hailed Sergeant Kevin Vickers, a hero, for being the one to take down the gunman. Sadly, a soldier was also killed in that incident. And then there was another shooting at the War Memorial. We're hearing as many as 30 to 50 shots were fired in the parliamentary incident alone, although that could have been, including the police response, a very, very strong response from the police here. And that continues at this moment. This is still very much an ongoing action. Military personnel are being told to not go out in public wearing their uniforms at the moment for fear of being targeted by further attacks. We're waiting now to hear from the Prime Minister, Stephen Harper, who we're told is no longer in Parliament Hill, but he will not be going to Toronto for a planned visit to meet with Malala Yousafzai, which was set to take place today.
Kristiaan, how does an armed suspect get into the halls of the Parliament?
Well, it's interesting. That is pretty much what everybody's asking here. I mean, it beggars belief, really, isn't it, that he made it through the doors and up those steps. It's unlike the White House, you can actually walk up to the doors and walk in. It's not, gated and fenced off, although many people I've been speaking to today have speculated that perhaps those days have come to an end after this incident. You can walk up those steps. It's a considerable walk, though, Artia. You would have to, carrying those one or two rifles that witnesses say they saw him with, you would have had to have walked, I'd say, 300 feet from the front of the gate up to the doors. And usually there are marked police cars waiting around this building. So this is very much a lapse in monitoring of what is Canada's most vulnerable building.
And you live in Canada. This type of incidents, these types of shootings are, fair to say, unprecedented in Ottawa.
Absolutely. I mean, Canada as a country can be described as incredibly peaceful, and Ottawa is no exception. I mean, it's the capital primarily for politics, and it has been shielded from much of the violence that we've seen in Vancouver, Toronto, even Winnipeg. Ottawa is a real safe haven, and this is something that's brought this city to a standstill. People are shocked by what's occurred here, and that feeling is reflected across the country because this is a country not used to this sort of targeting. However, as they join allied strikes against the likes of IS, they put themselves in this position, and speculation is, of course, swirling today as to the motives and why the Canadian capital would be targeted in this way.
Is this possibly linked to Monday's hit-and-run attack on 2 Canadian soldiers?
Well, nobody's saying that for sure, but the RCMP, the mounted police, were very much involved in that incident, and they're very much involved in this one. They seem to have taken the lead with suspected terror incidents. It's hard to say. They are all connected to soldiers. There is that news from the military here to warn personnel not to walk out in public wearing their uniforms. So, of course, that is going to lead to people making links between Monday's attack and today's. And, not least, just at the weekend, the Canadian Terror Authority raised the threat level for this country from low to medium. Less than 24 hours later, we saw what happened in Quebec, and 2 days after that, it came to the very heart of this country.
You mentioned Stephen Harper, Prime Minister Harper, earlier. I know he was in the parliament when the shooting happened. Do you know how he found out about the shooting? Did he hear the shots himself?
It's very possible that he did, RTA. I mean, you've seen the video yourself. Those shots are incredibly loud. We've not heard from the man himself publicly. I'm sure he's picking his words very carefully right now. And we actually don't know a venue as to where he will hold that conference. It may be that he will head to a military centre just to sort of rally the troops, seeing as this is something that appears to have targeted them as much as it has him. But you can only imagine the feeling inside Parliament when those shots were fired. And I think that we've heard from at least one MP from inside who was on his way to a committee hearing or usual business of the day. And it's not something you expect to see in a building like that.
Kristiaan, can you describe the security apparatus inside Parliament Hill? What is it like? Do you see security on a normal day?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, this is the national capital and this is the parliamentary building. So there is obviously a desire to have a very visible deterrent. And on every occasion that I've been here, there have been marked cars, unmarked cars, guards wandering around. This would not be an easy target by any means. As relaxed as Canada is about this sort of thing, and as peace-loving as this country is, this building would not be the easiest target to go for. So it may have been a bit of luck, may have been a lapse in judgment, an error in judgment. It could have been perhaps, RCA, that there were many leads, many possibilities swirling around within the intelligence that the police had this morning and all of this week, that things were missed, opportunities were missed, and essentially eyes were looking elsewhere.
And what are you hearing as far as U.S. officials helping Canadian authorities in this investigation?
Right now, it's very much Canada's looking to sort of take the lead in this. I believe the U.S. authorities have lent their support and publicly expressed sympathy. The U.S. Embassy here is certainly on strong lockdown, and we've seen snipers on top of their building as well, and it's very sensitive in this part of the capital where the U.S. Embassy sits right next to the parliamentary building, and it's a very prominent building. It's perhaps the most prominent embassy in the capital. Obviously, these two partners will work closely moving forward. They have done up until now, and that will continue. Perhaps Canada will now set up straight and maybe take more interest in counter-terrorism now that they've had two attacks in 1 week.
Do you know if security is being stepped up in other parts of Ottawa, in other parts of Canada, because of this?
Well, interesting you asked that, because on the way to the airport this morning in Toronto, we were sirened away on the road, on the motorway. Two armoured vehicles flanked by 4 or 5 unmarked SUVs bombing it along the highway towards downtown Toronto. Of course, that event that Stephen Harper was due to be at this afternoon to meet Yusuf, likely there was a potential threat in Toronto today. It didn't happen there. It happened in Ottawa. But of course, every city, every police force in Canada right now will be double-checking and triple-checking.
And Canada and U.S. are very close allies. Canada is a coalition in the war against ISIL. When you talk to Canadians, do you think there's a sense the fact that Canada is involved in this war on terror that might have something to do with what we've seen today? And I know I'm totally asking you a speculative question here.
Yes, I mean, that's all there is right now, isn't there, RCA? Speculation. And you can't help but wonder when we're talking about potential extremism, whether it's in retaliation to the airstrikes that Canada has now joined just last month. In fact, there was a guy that came up to the barricade earlier, I'm told, that started shouting at the crowd and the police that had gathered at the barricade, saying, "This is our fault. This is because of what we're doing in Iraq. This blood on our hands. We are responsible." And that man was chased down the street. So, although there are suggestions and speculations that this is the result of what Canada is doing elsewhere in the world, right now, in the minds of the public here, that's not something they want to talk about. Now is not the time to be pointing fingers and questioning Canada's military operation.
Kristiaan, thank you so much. Great reporting. I know you'll be following all the developments. We'll be checking back with you throughout the day.